As you all know, the president just put out a statement announcing an additional tariff on China. The tariff on China will now go up to 125% because China imprudently decided to retaliate against the United States. And as I said at the podium yesterday, when you punch at the United States of America, President Trump is going to punch back harder.
Imagine this. China's trade dominance is no longer a distant threat. It's here. Countries that once stood with America are now turning to Beijing, America's global power, slipping through our fingers. This isn't just trade. It's our jobs, our pride, our future. Think about it. While America was busy with politics, wars, and Wall Street profits, China was busy building railways, ports, bridges, forging trade ties with Africa, Asia, Latin America. And now, the world is shifting, one country at a time, to China. Is this the end of America's trade leadership? Stay tuned, because what's happening now could change everything. What's really driving this global shift? China's Belt and Road Initiative, once just an idea, is now rewriting the world's trade map. Across Africa, Asia, and Latin America, China is building railways, ports, and bridges, forging connections that make Beijing the new trade capital. Think about that. While America debated, China delivered. Low-cost exports, flooding markets with affordable goods, have won over countries that used to rely on the U.S. And those massive infrastructure deals, they're not just roads and bridges. They're pathways to China's influence. Quiet diplomacy. The kind that doesn't make headlines, is shaping alliances behind the scenes. Meanwhile, America's trade policy, it's stuck in political deadlock, divided, defensive, reactionary. Our allies see that, and they're nervous. They're watching a China that's building while the U.S. is arguing. Every time America hesitates, another country shifts closer to Beijing. And that's not just economic strategy. That's a game of power. China is turning trade into leverage, controlling supply chains, resources, and political ties. Can you feel it? The longer this continues, the more countries will pivot toward China's orbit. Some call it a silent takeover because it's happening in boardrooms, on construction sites, and in shipping ports, not on battlefields. That's how China wins, by making itself indispensable, one deal at a time. But make no mistake, this isn't just trade. This is about America's role in the world and whether we're ready to fight for it. Because every rail line, every port, every cheap export is a piece of a bigger puzzle. And guess who's holding all the pieces? China. This is the shift that no one saw coming. And it's happening right now. So, what's next? Is America ready to take back the lead? Or will we keep letting China's trade shock reshape the world? Stay with me, because the cost of inaction could be higher than we ever imagined. Let's talk about the cost, the real price America is paying right now. For decades, we believed the U.S. would always lead the world. We built the future with factories that roared, with innovation that inspired, with dreams that powered an entire generation. But look around today. It's 2025, and things have changed. Factory after factory closed. Steel towns empty. Communities that once thrived are now struggling just to survive. Jobs that supported families gone. In 2025, according to the latest World Bank data, U.S. manufacturing output has dropped another 2% this year alone, continuing a decade-long decline. Meanwhile, China's industrial production rose by 3.5%, and they've expanded exports to more than 140 countries, a number confirmed by the IMF's latest direction of trade statistics. Think about that. We're losing the edge that made us the envy of the world, our supply chains. More dependent than ever on a rival superpower. Just last quarter, the U.S. imported a record $480 billion in goods from China, nearly 20% higher than pre-pandemic levels. That means we rely on China for everything from electronics to medicine, and every day that dependence grows. It's not just about trade. This is about our national pride, our security, the future of our children. What happens when America can't build its own future anymore? What happens when our factories become museums and our kids grow up in a country that doesn't make anything? This is the cost of letting China take the lead. Piece by piece, one trade deal at a time. It's not just a statistic. It's families in Ohio, in Michigan, in Pennsylvania, asking, where did the jobs go? It's a mom in Indiana wondering how she'll pay for her kid's education. It's a dad in Wisconsin wondering if his son will ever get a shot at the American dream. This is about U.S. It's about whether we still believe in the promise of America or whether we'll watch it slip away while China rises. The choice is ours. Are we ready to fight back? Or will we let China's trade shock rewrite our future? Stay with me, because in the next part, we're going to look at the warning signs and why China's influence is growing faster than anyone predicted. Do you see the warning signs? China's trade machine isn't just making cheap goods, it's taking over the global market. Right now, in 2025, China leads in trade with the European Union, Brazil, most of Africa, and even some of America's closest allies in Southeast Asia. Let that sink in. Even our friends are shifting their trade to Beijing. According to the latest data from the IMF Direction of Trade Statistics and World Bank reports, China's exports to Africa grew another 4% this year, hitting record levels. They're also the top trading partner for Brazil, outpacing the U.S. by a wide margin. And in Southeast Asia, nations like Thailand, Indonesia, and Malaysia are forging new trade deals with China that bypass American influence altogether. This isn't just about buying and selling, and it's about control. When China dominates trade, they control supply chains. When they control supply chains, they hold the power to dictate terms, prices, access to goods, even political leverage. Think about critical resources like rare earth minerals, the backbone of clean energy and high-tech industries. China controls nearly 60% of global production, according to the UNCTAD Trade and Development Report 2025. Imagine what that means when the world needs batteries, solar panels, or the chips that power our smartphones. This is leverage that China can and will use. If America doesn't act, the consequences could be devastating. We're talking about an economic earthquake that could shake our jobs, our communities, our security. Imagine a future where China calls the shots, where American companies can't build without Beijing's approval, where your kid's future depends on decisions made in Shanghai instead of Washington. This is the warning we cannot afford to ignore. China's trade shock isn't just a headline. It's happening in real time. It's happening every time a new port opens in Africa, every time a trade deal is signed in Latin America, every time an American company closes because it can't compete with Chinese imports. This is the rising influence of a superpower that's playing the long game. A superpower that's outthinking and outbuilding America in places that used to be our backyard. And if we don't fight back, if we keep ignoring the warning signs, we may wake up one day and realize China didn't just win the trade war, they won the future. Stay with me. Because in the next part, we're going to talk about what America can do to fight back before it's too late. Here's the big question. Can America fight back? It's not too late. But we need a real plan. No more talk. No more excuses. No more finger pointing. We need action. And we need it now. America's strength was always built on innovation, on factories that didn't just make things, but built dreams. We need to bring that spirit back. Think about it. In 2025, China is leading in clean energy production, controlling over 60% of global solar panel exports. That's our opportunity slipping away. Meanwhile, semiconductor demand is at an all-time high, but most of those chips come from factories outside the U.S. We can't let that continue. We need investments in American manufacturing, in semiconductor plants that bring jobs home and keep America competitive. We need a national strategy for clean energy, not just to fight climate change, but to fight for America's place in the global economy. Imagine a future where American workers build the batteries that power our cars, the solar panels that power our homes, the chips that power our phones. That's not just good for the economy, it's a matter of national security. When we rely on China's supply chains, we hand them control over our future. We can't let that happen. This is about more than trade. It's about pride. It's about giving every American the chance to build a future they can believe in. It's about telling the world that America still leads. We don't just talk about the future, we make it. To do that, we need a plan that unites our strengths. A plan that brings together Republicans and Democrats, CEOs and factory workers, urban centers and small towns. Because this fight isn't red or blue, it's red, white, and blue. If we want to protect American jobs, American pride, and America's global power, we need to act now. Because while we debate, China builds. While we argue, China invests. While we wait, China wins. But it doesn't have to be that way. We can take back the lead. We can fight for the future. Stay with me, because in the final part, we're going to talk about the payoff, the hope, and the future that's still within our reach, if we're brave enough to seize it. Here's the truth. America once built the future. We didn't just lead the world in trade, we inspired it. We were the engine of innovation, the home of opportunity, the land where anything was possible. But today, China's trade shock is testing that legacy. We've seen the warning signs, countries turning to Beijing, factories closing, jobs disappearing. We've felt the cost, pride lost, communities struggling, our kids' futures at stake. But it's not too late. We can fight back. We can rebuild American manufacturing. We can lead in clean energy, in semiconductors, in the industries of tomorrow. We can take back control of our supply chains and protect our national security. Because this isn't just about trade. It's about America's power and America's pride. It's about giving every American family a chance to believe again. To believe that our country can still lead. It starts with U.S., understanding the challenge and acting now. No more waiting, no more excuses, no more giving away our future to a rival superpower. So, if you care about America's place in the world, if you care about jobs, pride, and the future, then like, share, subscribe. Because what we do next determines whether America keeps leading or keeps losing. The choice is ours, and the time is now. Stay strong, stay informed, stay American.